Oh my God. My signal's cutting the fucking music out. Oh, this is lame. So fucking dumb.
Do you want to impersonate it?
Oh my God, Rob's gonna die when he sees this. Oh, well, fuck, we running. We tried to play you some music. I don't know what the fuck is going on there. I have 3 out of 5 bars that should be enough to at least play a fucking song.
I never knew you played it from your phone. I thought it was like...
Well, no, it's not playing from my phone. It's playing from my laptop, but it's using my phone's hotspot for the Wi-Fi.
Okay.
So if my phone lags, the laptop lags. This is so hilarious. It keeps cutting me out. So.
This is the best.
Oh my God.
Now do Sterling screaming.
God damn it.
I didn't do that right. Oh God!
It's hard to hit those triplets.
I'm like snorting now.
That was fucking awesome. Hi, welcome to We Are Many. Today it is We Are Awkward, and so is our signal. Hi. Oh shit! Hello and welcome. I'm Trisha.
I'm Chelsea.
And tonight we are going to be covering another episode of Bell Hook's book, Killing Racism. Or I'm sorry, Killing Rage, Ending Racism. Sorry, the music thing fucked me all up. Oh, holy shit. That was great. That was
He's
great.
gonna have to use that for his clips.
I know, right?
Dude.
Okay, I see we have somebody in the comments already. Jeff Bridges. Actually, we do own the copyrights to this music because that was written by our staff. It's okay. We won't get copyright hits from Facebook for that because that's original. Oh, shit. There we go. I'll turn on the chat overlay. There. That's what that's supposed to do. And it didn't pop it up. That's weird. Anyway.
I don't like to rewatch myself, but I'm going to rewatch the beginning of this later.
Right. That was just hilarious. Like, the music cutting in and out. Goodness. Anywho, yeah. So tonight we're going to be reading the essay Black Beauty and Black Power This is starting on page 119 if you have the book and are reading along with us. And yeah. If you're ready, I'm ready. We can dive right on in here.
Alrighty, I'm just trying to find it again. That threw me off.
It threw me off too.
All right, here we go.
Oh,
Social issues are serious. Let's go.
right.
All right, I'm hitting play.
Go for it. Hell yeah.
Page 119, Essay 11, Black Beauty and Black Power. Internalized Racism. No social movement to end white supremacy addressed the issue of internalized racism in relation to beauty as intensely as did the Black Power revolution of the 60s. For a time, at least, this movement challenged Black folks to examine the psychic impact of white supremacy. Reading Franz Fanon and Albert Memmi, our leaders began to speak of colonization and the need to decolonize our minds and imaginations. Exposing the myriad ways white supremacy had assaulted our self-concept and our self-esteem, militant leaders of Black liberation struggle demanded that Black folks see ourselves differently, see self-love as a radical political agenda. That meant establishing a politics of representation which would both critique and integrate ideals of personal beauty and desirability informed by racist standards and put in place progressive standards, a system of valuation that would embrace a diversity of Black looks. Ironically, as Black leaders called into question racist defined notions of beauty, many white folks expressed awe and wonder that there existed in segregated Black life color caste systems wherein the lighter one's skin, the greater one's individual social value. Page 120. They're surprised at the way color caste functioned in Black life exposed the extent to which they chose to remain willfully ignorant of how systemic white supremacist thinking is established and maintained. Construction of color caste hierarchies by white racists in 19th century life is well documented in their history and literature. That contemporary white folks are ignorant of this history reflects the way the dominant culture seeks to deny, via erasure, a history of race relations that documents their accountability. This denial allows no space for accountability, no space for whites in contemporary culture to know and acknowledge the primary role whites played in the formation of color castes. All Black folks, even those who know very little, if anything at all, about North American history, slavery, Reconstruction, etc., know that racist white folks often treated lighter-skinned Black folks better than their darker counterparts, and that this pattern was mirrored in Black social relations. Individual Black folks who grow to maturity in all white settings that may have allowed them to remain ignorant of color caste systems are soon initiated when they have contact with other Black people. Issues of skin color and caste were highlighted by militant Black struggle for rights. The slogan, "Black is beautiful," worked to intervene in and alter those racist stereotypes that had always insisted Black was ugly, monstrous, undesirable. One of the primary achievements of Black Power movement was the critique and, in some instances, dismantling of color caste hierarchies. This achievement often goes unnoticed and undiscussed, largely because it created major unseen and usually undocumented changes in the psyches of Black folks, particularly those of us from working class and/or poor backgrounds who did not have access to public forums where we could announce and discuss these changes. Page 121. Coming of age before Black Power, most Black folks faced the implications of color caste either through devaluation or overvaluation. In other words, to be born light meant that one was born with an advantage, recognized by everyone. To be born dark was to start life handicapped with a serious disadvantage. At the onset of contemporary feminist movement, I had only recently stopped living in a segregated Black world and begun life in predominantly white settings. I remember countering white female insistence that when a child is newly born and coming out of the womb, the first concern is to identify gender, whether male or female, by calling attention to the reality that the initial concern for most Black parents is skin color, this concern being a direct reflection of the correlation between skin color and success. Militant Black liberation struggle challenged this sensibility. It made it possible for Black people to have an ongoing public discourse about the detrimental impact of internalized racism as regards skin color and beauty standards. Darker-skinned Blacks who had historically borne the brunt of devaluation based on color were recognized as having been wronged by assaulted white supremacist aesthetic values. New beauty standards were set that sought to value and embrace the different complexions of blackness. Suddenly, the assumption that each individual black person, irrespective of sexual preference, would also seek a lighter partner was called into question. When our militant, charismatic black male revolutionary leader Malcolm X chose to marry a darker-skinned woman, he set different standards. These changes had a profound impact on black family life. The needs of children who suffered various forms of discrimination and were psychologically wounded in families and or public school systems because they were not the right color could be addressed, page 122. For example, parents of a dark-skinned child who, when misbehaving at school, would be called a devil or evil and unjustly punished, now had recourse to material written by black psychologists and psychiatrists documenting the detrimental effects of the color caste system. In all areas of black life, the call to see black as beautiful was empowering. Large numbers of black women stopped chemically straightening our hair since there was no longer any negative stigma attached to wearing one's hair with its natural texture. Those folks who had often stood passively by while observing other black folks being mistreated on the basis of skin color felt for the first time that it was politically appropriate to intervene. I remember when I and my siblings challenged our grandmother, who could pass for white, about the disparaging comments she made about dark-skinned people, including her grandchildren. Even though we were in a small southern town, we were deeply affected by the call to end color caste hierarchies. This process of decolonization created powerful changes in the lives of all black people in the United States. It meant that we could now militantly confront and change the devastating psychological consequences of internalized racism. Even when contemporary collective militant black struggle for self-determination began to wane, alternative ways of seeing blackness and defining beauty continued to flourish. These changes diminished as assimilation became the process by which black folks could successfully enter the mainstream. Once again, the fate of black folks rested with white power. If a black person wanted a job and found it easier to get it if he or she did not wear a natural hairstyle, etc., this was perceived by many to be a legitimate reason to change. And of course, many black and white folks felt that the gains in civil rights, racial integration, and the lifting of many long-standing racial taboos, for example, interracial relationships and the resistance to segregated housing, meant that militant struggle was no longer needed, page 123. Since freedom for black folks had been defined as gaining the rights to enter mainstream society, to assume the values and or economic standing of white privileged classes, it logically follows that it did not take long for interracial interaction in the areas of education and jobs to reinstitutionalize, in less overt ways, a system wherein individual black folks who were most like white folks in the way they looked, talked, dressed, etc., would find it easier to be socially mobile. To some extent, the dangers of assimilation to white standards were obscured by the assumption that our ways of seeing blackness had been fundamentally changed. Aware black activists did not assume that we would ever return to social conditions where black folks would once again be grappling with issues of color. While leaders like Eldridge Cleaver, Malcolm X, Huey Newton, and many others repeatedly made the issue of self-love central to black liberation struggle, once many rights were gained, new activists did not continue the emphasis on decolonization. Many folks just assumed we had collectively resisted and altered color castes. Few black activists were vigilant enough to see that concrete rewards for assimilation would undermine subversive oppositional ways of seeing blackness. Yet racial integration meant that many black folks were rejecting the ethic of communalism that had been a crucial survival strategy when racial apartheid was the norm and were embracing liberal individualism. Being free was seen as having the right to satisfy individual desire without accountability to a collective body. Consequently, black folks could now feel that the way they wore their hair was not political, but simply a matter of choice. Seeking to improve class mobility, to make it in the white world, black folks began to backtrack and assume once again the attitudes and values of internalized racism, page 124. Some folks justified their decisions to compromise and assimilate white aesthetic standards by seeing it as simply, quote, wearing the mask, end quote, to get over. This was best typified by those black females who wore straight, white-looking wigs to work, covering natural hairdos. Unfortunately, Black acceptance of assimilation meant that a politics of representation affirming white beauty standards was being reestablished as the norm. Without an organized ongoing collective movement for Black self-determination, militant conscious Black critical thinkers and/or activists began to constitute a subculture. A revolutionary militant stance, one that seriously critiqued capitalism and imperialism, was no longer the message Black masses internalized. Given these circumstances, the radicalization of a leader like Martin Luther King went unnoticed by most Black folks. His passionate critiques of militarism and capitalism were not heard. He continues to be remembered primarily for those earlier stages of political work wherein he supported a bourgeois model of assimilation and social mobility. Those Black activists who remained in the public eye did not continue a militant critique and interrogation of white standards of beauty. While radical activists like Angela Davis, who had major public forums, continued to wear natural hair and be individually Black identified, they did not make continued decolonization of our minds and imaginations central to their political agendas. They did not continually call for a focus on Black self-love, on ending internalized racism.
I liked this chapter, not because I don't know that I'll have a whole lot to say, just because I can see what she's talking about. It's definitely accurate. I just don't have a lot that I can say personally to relate to it. But I liked her emphasis on this in the way that people just thought that it was sort of an individual choice now, and how people remember the nice Martin Luther King Jr. And then how Angela Davis, while she does wear her hair naturally and present herself as Black, that a lot of the time people don't understand that the revolution is not just the things that we see, that just because things change on the surface doesn't mean that our minds are completely understanding of the colonization that it's gone through. And it's a much more thorough kind of revolution that you have to pay more attention to constantly with pretty much anything, but with this specifically.
It's one of those things that needs the revolution to continue to be ongoing in undoing that mental decolonization, or the mental colonization going on. You know what I mean there. Undoing all of that, because if you don't unfuck your own mind, you're going to continue to carry it forward in the future. It's going to hit in waves like that. If you'll see,
don't think that just
for
because
some time and then more.
Yeah, and don't think that just because you've won what you've been asking for, that, I mean, a lot of the time they just give you what you're asking for because you've bitched too much. It's like calling someone on the phone and bitching for your money back, or bitching for a refund, or bitching for a coupon. And
reform is shit that never goes far enough and can always be walked back.
Yeah, it's like you're just fighting to get what you can, and then you stop.
Well, the thing is, like, it wasn't anybody's intention to stop. It was the federal government's intention to put a stop to it. And for a time, they were successful at that because of the massive violent crackdown that they put against, say, the Black Panther Party and other groups that they worked, locked arms with, because they did not like seeing Black empowerment fucking happening. Especially,
but that's more extreme. This is more subtle, is more like an underlying mind game. It's all a mind game, but like this is
part of what they were teaching about with the entire Panther movement too. If my memory serves right, Angela Davis was a Panther as well. The activism came together in a very holistic manner. It wasn't just addressing the wrongs going on, like, legally and whatnot. It was also addressing this internalized racism that she's talking about, of no, love yourself, accept yourself. Black is beautiful. You don't have to, continue this fucking colorist hierarchy bullshit that got ingrained in you from white supremacist colonizer bullshit,
Yeah.
So like it definitely was a facet of that, because if you're going to be able to invoke that empowerment within yourself, that starts with loving yourself, and that means loving every bit of yourself and who you are.
I think, yeah, I mean, I think specifically it's just really important that I think that's the biggest obstacle that we have is people thinking that once they get what they want, that things are changed. I mean, you have to read the underlying, don't get comfortable with people. You have to read the underlying context of what people are saying to you, even if it's nice. It's like, what are you here for? And that one really hit with the 3 different things that she mentioned. It was just like people only have so much an attention span, and then they want to go back home and they want to like put this all
right. And that's like a lot of people after the civil rights movement were like, fuck yeah, we made some strides, and then they got comfortable instead of going, wait a minute, we ain't fucking done yet. And so now we're seeing a resurgence of a new civil rights movement beginning to build here. That's why we're seeing the Panther Party itself rebuild and come back. We're seeing the United Panther movement that brings in the White Panthers and the Brown Berets. We're seeing, the Second Rainbow Coalition happening, that is everybody who is of this mindset. And it's because we're not fucking done yet.
Yeah.
There's still so much more that needs to be addressed and be changed, because even with as much ground was taken with the civil rights movement, it's clearly not enough when look at the last fucking few years where we've seen a massive increase in murder by cop of Black people, including children. We ain't done yet,
Yeah. I'll go again.
Go for it.
Towards the end of the 70s, Black folks were far less interested in calling attention to the perpetuation of racism and beauty standards. No one
Wait. Did I get lost?
No, she picked up at the right spot. That bottom paragraph on page 124.
Yeah. Wait. Oh, I think I accidentally. Oh, that was me. Okay.
Okay.
I like went over to the other page to look at something, and then I left it there.
Gotcha.
Yeah. All right.
Radical activists who began to straighten their hair, etc. It was assumed that internalized racial self-hatred was no longer, and the way we wore our hair was merely an expression of liberal individualism, page 125. Heterosexual Black male leaders openly chose their partners and spouses using the standards of the color caste system. During the most militant stages of Black Power movement, they had never really stopped allowing racist notions of beauty to define female desirability, even as they preached a message of self-love and an end to internalized racism. This hypocrisy also played a major role in creating a framework where color caste systems could become once again the accepted norm. Resurgence of interest in Black self-determination, as well as growing overt white supremacy, created a context in the 80s where attention could be given the issue of decolonization, of internalized racism. Mass media carried stories about the fact that Black children had low self-esteem, that they preferred white images over Black ones, that Black girls liked white dolls better than Black ones. This news was all presented with awe and wonder, as though everyone was unaware that any political context could exist for the repudiation and devaluation of Blackness. Yet, the politics of racial assimilation had always operated as a form of backlash intended to undermine Black self-determination. Not all Black people closed our eyes to this reality. However, we did not have the access to mass media and public forums that would have made it possible for us to launch a sustained challenge to internalized racism. Most of us continued to fight against the internalization of white supremacist thinking on whatever fronts we found ourselves. As a professor, I continually interrogate these issues in the classroom and as a writer in my books. Nowadays, in some circles, it is fashionable to mock Black power struggle and see it solely as a failed social movement. It is easy for folks to make light of the slogan, "Black is beautiful," page 126. Yet this contemporary mockery does not change the reality that the interrogation of internalized racism embedded in this slogan and the many concrete challenges that took place in all areas of Black life did produce radical changes, even though they were undermined by white supremacist backlash. Most folks refuse to see the intensity of this backlash and place responsibility on radical black activists for having too superficial an agenda. The primary justifiable critique we can make of militant black liberation struggle is its failure to institutionalize sustained strategies of critical resistance. Collectively and individually, we must all assume accountability for the resurgence of color caste hierarchies in black life. White supremacist, capitalist, patriarchal assaults on movements for black self-determination aimed at ending internalized racism were most effectively launched by mass media. Institutionalizing a politics of representation which ended years of racial segregation put black people on the screen even as the images produced were mirrored stereotypes. These representations undermined black self-determination. The affirmation of assimilation as well as racist white aesthetic standards became one of the most effective ways to undermine efforts to transform internalized racism in the psyches of the black masses. When these racist stereotypical images were coupled with concrete reality, whereby assimilated black folks were the ones receiving greater material reward, the culture was ripe for a resurgence of color caste hierarchy. Color caste hierarchies embrace the issues of both skin color and hair texture. Since lighter-skinned black people often are genetically connected to intergenerational pairings of both white and black people, they tend to look more like whites. Females who were the offsprings of generations of interracial mixing are more likely to have long, straight hair. Page 127. The exploitative and/or oppressive nature of color caste systems in white supremacist society has always had a gendered component. A mixture of racist and sexist thinking informs the way color caste hierarchies detrimentally affect the lives of black females differently than they do black males. Light skin and long straight hair continue to be traits that define a female as beautiful and desirable in the racist white imagination and in the colonized black mindset. Darker-skinned black females must work to develop positive body self-esteem in a society that continually devalues their image. To this day, the image of black female bitchiness, evil temper, and treachery continues to be represented by someone with dark skin. Light-skinned women are never represented as sapphires. Only dark-skinned females occupy this devalued position. We see these images continually in mass media, whether they be presented to us in television sitcoms like the popular show Martin. On cop shows, the criminal bad black woman is usually dark, and in movies made by black and white directors alike. Spike Lee graphically portrayed conflict over skin color in his film School Days, not via male characters, but by staging a dramatic fight between light-skinned women and their darker counterparts. His film merely exploited the issue. It was not critically subversive or oppositional. And in many theaters, black audiences loudly expressed their continued investment in color caste hierarchies by dissing darker-skinned female characters.
So is a sapphire a prostitute, or is a sapphire the girl of a gang member?
Honestly, I don't know.
I tried to look it up on Urban Dictionary, and I think it's so outdated that I couldn't figure out what it was.
I'm really not sure about the reference because I've never heard that one before. So I honestly couldn't tell you.
I'm not surprised at what she said here either. And I'm also not surprised about her previous statement that whites are in awe of the fact that there's color caste systems because of white supremacy that instilled that, or that black girls prefer white dolls and things like that. But at the same time, it is strange to me to be on the other side of that and to still see things in that way. To be the victim of that and to still see things that way is what's weird to me. Obviously, I can't put myself in those shoes, but I don't know. Being an ex-Christian and being a victim of male abuse, it's just really hard for me to see how I ever would have reacted to it in an opposite way. It's just very strange to me, but
Well, it's one of those things where even like in that example she gave of the children preferring white dolls over black dolls, that's something that people were actually starting to recognize at this point in time in the 90s when she wrote this. And because of that, there grew a huge movement to go, fuck this. We need to have dolls actually representing every shade of the rainbow, not just white Barbie, you know? And thank goodness for that actually happening, of children having toys now where they can actually see themselves represented there, and to maybe stop passing down that mind fuck that came from said colonization of the mind,
Yeah.
because that's something that, until psychologists started actually seeing this in what toys children were selecting, it it was kind of going under the radar that this was even being ingrained in little kids.
She gets more into that as well. And I know that you've read it still also. How much do you think that has changed today? Do you think that it's significantly changed? I mean, it seems as though it has to me, but I obviously don't live that experience. And also it plays into her last essay where she talks about how the media portrays situations that may not be realistic to actual life. So it just makes me wonder.
I mean, I think there's been improvement for sure. But again, are we done yet? No.
No, I definitely don't think we're done. It's just as, I mean, it's kind of the same vein as the last essay with the mass media and things like that. So,
right. I think it has at least improved greatly with the fact that there's more representation.
yeah. I mean, it's obviously not done yet. I mean, because you still hear of specific celebrities whitewashing themselves. I can think of one of them off the top of my head. And she thinks she's a terrorist.
Yeah, she came to mind too. Yeah. At some point in this series, we need to actually grab that video from BET if possible, and maybe
we could do it at the last episode or something.
Yeah,
if we can get it.
Yeah, at least show a clip of that conversation, of her breaking that down, of why she called her a terrorist.
Bell Hooks called Beyonce a terrorist, everybody. I felt like at first I was trying to be ambiguous and not go there, but now I'm just like, now I'm saying terrorist and everybody's like, what's going on? But yeah, I still have that article saved. It was very interesting. I would like to read the whole thing or listen to the whole thing. But yeah.
Right. I got to read the whole thing, but it wouldn't load the video for me.
It wasn't long enough to understand the whole context, yeah. All right, I'll start again.
Okay.
Throughout the history of white supremacy in the United States, racist white men have regarded the biracial white and black female as a sexual ideal. Black men have taken their cues from white men in this regard, stereotypically portrayed as embodying a passionate sensual eroticism as well as a subordinate feminine nature. The biracial-looking black woman as well as the biracial woman has been and remains the standard other black females are measured against. Page 128. Even when darker-skinned black women are given play in mass media, television, and movies, their characters are usually subordinated to lighter-skinned females who are deemed more desirable. For a time, films that portrayed the biracial-looking black woman as a tragic mulatto were passé, but contemporary films like the powerful drama One False Move return this figure to center stage. Whereas the impact of militant black liberation struggle had once impressed upon white-dominated fashion magazines and black magazines to show diverse images of black female beauty, in more recent times it has been acceptable to simply highlight and valorize the image of the biracial-looking black woman and the biracial woman. Black women models like Naomi Campbell find that they have a greater crossover success if their images are altered by long straight wigs weaves, or bonded hair so that they resemble the wannabes, folks who affirm the equation of whiteness with beauty by seeking to take on the characteristic look of whiteness. This terrain of drag, wherein the distinctly black-looking female is made to appear in a constant struggle to transform herself to look like a white female, is a space only a brown-skinned black woman can occupy. Biracial-looking black women and biracial women already occupy a distinctly different, more valued place within the beauty hierarchy. Once again, as in the days of slavery and racial apartheid, white fascination with racial mixing determines the standard of valuation, especially when the issue is valuation of black female bodies. A world that can recognize the dark-skinned Michael Jordan as a symbol of black beauty scorns and devalues the beauty of Tracy Chapman. Black male pop icons, especially comedians, mock her looks. And while folks comment on the fact that light-skinned and or biracial women have become the stars of most movies that depict black folks, no one has organized public forums to talk about the way this mass media focus on color undermines our efforts to decolonize our minds and imaginations. Page 129. Just as whites now privilege lighter skin in movies and fashion magazines, particularly with female characters, folks with darker skin face media that subordinate their image. Dark skin is stereotypically coded in the racist, sexist, and or colonized imagination as masculine. Hence, a male's power is enhanced by dark looks, while a female's dark looks diminish her femininity. Irrespective of people's sexual preferences, the color caste hierarchy functions to diminish the desirability of darker-skinned females. Being seen as desirable does not simply affect one's ability to attract partners. It enhances class mobility in public arenas, in educational systems, and in the workforce. Fundamentally, the tragic consequences of color caste hierarchy are evident among the very young who are striving to construct positive identity and healthy self-esteem. Black parents testify that black children learn early to devalue dark skin. One black mother in an interracial marriage was shocked when her 4-year-old girl expressed the desire that her mom be white like herself and her dad. She had already learned that white was better. She had already learned to negate the blackness in herself. Yet her black mother had been unaware that her daughter was internalizing racist attitudes and values. In high schools all around the United States, darker-skinned black girls must resist the societal socialization that encourages them to see themselves as ugly. They must resist this socialization in order to construct healthy self-esteem. Concurrently, they must resist the efforts of peers to devalue and berate them. This is just one of the tragic implications of black reinvestment in color caste hierarchies. Had there never been a shift in color consciousness among black people, no one would have paid special attention to the reality that many black children seem to be having as much difficulty learning to love blackness in this racially integrated time of multiculturalism as folks had during periods of intense racial apartheid. Page 130. Kathy Sandler's documentary film, A Question of Color, examines the way black liberation politics of the 60s challenged color caste, even as she shows recent images of activists who returned to conventional racist-defined notions of beauty. This shift is most signaled by changes in hairstyles. Sandler's film is an important intervention because it creates a cultural context wherein serious discussion of color castes can once again become an integral part of public discourse. Unfortunately, Sandler does not offer suggestions and strategies for how we can deal with this problem now. Merely describing the problems of color caste is not an act of critical intervention. Change will come only as we know the ways these hierarchies create a crisis of consciousness that must be addressed politically if we are not to return to an old model of class and caste, where those blacks who are most privileged will be light-skinned and or biracial and act as mediators between the white world and a disenfranchised, disadvantaged mass of black folks with dark skin. Right now, there is a new wave of young, well-educated biracial folks who identify as black and who benefit from this identification socially, as well as when they enter the workforce. Although they realize the implicit racism at work when they are valued more by whites than darker-skinned blacks, the ethic of opportunistic liberal individualism sanctions this complicity. Ironically, they may be among those who critique color caste even as they accept the perks that come from the culture's reinvestment in color caste hierarchies. Page 131. Until black folks begin to collectively critique and question the politics of representation that systematically devalue blackness, the devastating effects of color caste will continue to inflict psychological damage on masses of black folks. To intervene and transform those politics of representation informed by colonialism, imperialism, and white supremacy, we have to be willing to challenge the effort of mainstream culture to erase racism by suggesting it does not really exist. Recognizing the power of mass media images to define social reality, we need lobbyists in the governments, organized groups who sponsor boycotts, etc., to create awareness of these concerns and to demand change. Progressive non-Black allies in struggle must join the effort to call attention to internalized racism. Everyone must break through the wall of denial that would have us believe hatred of Blackness emerges from troubled individual psyches and acknowledge that it is systematically taught through processes of socialization in white supremacist society. That Black folks who have internalized white supremacist attitudes and values are as much agents of this socialization as their racist non-Black counterparts. Progressive Black leaders and or critical thinkers who are committed to a politics of cultural transformation that would constructively change the lot of the Black underclass and thus positively impact the culture as a whole need to make decolonizing our minds and imaginations central when we educate for critical consciousness. Learning from the past, we need to remain critically vigilant, willing to interrogate our work as well as our habits of being to ensure that we are not perpetuating internalized racism. Currently, more conservative Black political agendas, like the Nation of Islam and certain strands of Afrocentrism, are the only groups who make self-love central as a strategy to capture the imagination of the masses. Page 132. Revolutionary struggle for Black self-determination must become a real political movement in our lives if we want to counter conservative thinking and offer life-affirming practices to masses of Black folks who are daily wounded by white supremacist assaults. Those wounds will not heal if left unattended.
Yeah, we need to do better than the Nation of Islam for sure.
All right. Yeah,
I
that
see
was a
them
short
protest.
chapter, but impactful.
It was a little bit longer. I think that lady just reads better. It was like
Well, there's
13
that.
pages instead of 9 or 10, but she like reads real fast.
Right.
And she's clearer too, and she doesn't skip things.
That helps.
I wonder when this was first taped. Like, because it makes sense that it would be like, oh, it's 2003, and that's bullshit. Except it's not. So,
Right. It kind of makes me wonder. I think it was probably recorded on audiobook either in the late 90s or early 2000s. Yeah, because just even some of the shit that we've seen them intentionally omit from what they're reading and skip entire pages and stuff, it just it reeks of a lot of the shit that was still more prevalent then than it is now. And like even where she's addressing, say, artists and models and stuff like that, I can say at least I'm glad to see that vicinity has also made some progress, because now there are a lot of really drop-dead gorgeous, beautiful, dark-skinned models being, put center stage on the runway and in print. So apparently the message, was getting across at that point in time, to even see that evolution over the last 15 to 20 years where that has shifted. But,
so from Jeff's earlier comment that I said that I would look for that, I believe it's feminism. It's a Black thing.
I think so. I have the pages turned. Some of it was also referenced in Teaching Resistance, the Racial Politics of Mass Media.
Yeah, but I think what he's like bringing up the feminist movement in general. And I think that's where she mentions how the feminist movement never really faced like assassinations and things like that, and accelerated much faster than any other civil rights movement.
Right.
Without as many losses. So
Sorry, my signal was cutting out.
Oh, you're fine.
It sounded like you stopped and then it cut back in.
Okay.
But yeah, specifically what he's referencing there, she discussed in Feminism, It's a Black Thing. I think that was one of the areas where the person reading it for the audiobook skipped an entire page that was pointing out that white feminists literally used racism as a launching point to step on the heads of Black women in order to try to lift themselves up to more equality with white men, and thereby hindered feminism, period, because you can't fucking actually uplift all women if it's not all women. They did more harm than anything there with that. She definitely put it better than I possibly can right now because she's quite fucking eloquent. So I highly suggest reading that chapter or going on either our website or our Facebook page. You can find the video from that segment too, where we listened to that audiobook.
That was really short.
It was, but
and I don't have much to say.
Me neither. Because as I said, before we even hit go live, there's not a lot to really elaborate on what she said because she's very clear, concise, to the point, direct, and covers it all.
Yeah, I mean, these are things that I'm aware of them, but I'm not always aware of when they're happening in certain media and things like that. And so it was just, sometimes I can come up with examples to help make it more relevant to whoever's watching or something. But this for me was and then I don't know, at the same time, it makes you wonder, obviously don't stop, but how far have we come from that? And like you've said, I've noticed more that there is a lot more diversity, that you do see a lot of very dark-skinned women being praised and put in modeling positions and things like that. Not necessarily even things where they have to take a role. They're just themselves.
Right.
So, but yeah, I don't know. Still problems. Seems to be better. Let's keep going.
Right. Progress made, not done yet.
Yeah.
But,
are we going to start another solo?
What's that?
Or I guess it's a duo. Are we going to start another duo then?
Oh, that should be fun. Hopefully the music for the closing will actually play properly. I did move my phone and I don't know.
You're coming across fine the whole time mostly. So I thought that was weird that it decided to just do it to that.
I don't know. My fucking hotspot is weird sometimes. It'll go from crystal clear to just breaking up, cutting in and out, and it gets interesting. Definitely made for an awkward intro. But, awkward intros and awkward exits are kind of our thing. It's a signature move here at For We Are Many because we're some awkward motherfuckers. But, yeah, as far as analysis goes, there's really not anything more I can think of to say to elaborate on what I said here, because she hit it all, everything that needed to be covered in relation to that, so I guess if our viewers don't have any questions or comments to add on, we can wrap this segment up, and we'll see you back here Sunday for the next episode of this. However, in the meantime, tune in tomorrow for the current event stream. And Friday night, same time, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, we will be interviewing Chairman Zulu of the New African Black Panther Party and discussing the I'm sorry. I've got an itch in my throat here and I need to take a drink. We'll be discussing the Hassan Shakur Community Center that they've built in conjunction with the United Panther Movement and the Second Rainbow Coalition. That's in Newark, New Jersey. It is, I do believe, the first Panther office to actually open in around 50 years or so. And they've already been taking in donations of food and stuff and getting those put out to the community and stuff, making sure that everybody has their needs met. And that's the whole fucking goal, is community care. It's that praxis, that real solidarity. And so that's going to be an awesome interview. We will be doing that live Friday night. So if you have any questions that you would like to give Chairman Zulu, by all means, join us for that.
All right, we can go.
Once again, you're awkward. So we'll leave you with Chelsea's facial expressions. Hi, Natalie. Thank you. Oh, goodness. There's that. If my signal will catch up and pop that slide up there.
At least they can't see us if we have to sing again.
There we go. Here's all the places where you can find us. I think that's pretty concise of a list there. I forget. Is there anything else we have added? Because I do need to edit the slide too. You're a social media person. I think that covers it all, other than, well, we're now on Twitch too. So I'll have to add that to the slide. If you'd like to support what we are doing, you can find us on Patreon at www.patreon.com/forwearemany. And shout out to Left Signal Boost. They are one of our partners that we are also streaming through now too. And on that note, I will grab some music for you to enjoy, and hopefully this time it will play right. And you won't have to listen to Chelsea and I just
I think I like my singing.
What's that?
No one was really here whenever that happened, so I'm like, all right.
It went from 0 to 2 viewers in no time, so I'm not sure what point they popped in there and actually got to hear our fuckery, but it was fun. And now Google Drive is not wanting to properly load the music, so give me a moment. Reloading the page.
No.
Thank you, Chelsea. That was classy. Oh, goodness.
You've got to go back, Natalie. It's golden.
Oh my God. It's telling me to refresh the page again and it won't let me refresh the page. This is dumb. Jeez. Oh my goodness. Eventually, I hopefully will get the fucking music to play. My signal sucks where I'm at right now. So, my bad.
The beginning of the stream is better than this, for sure. It's very, very good.
Holy shit, it's almost there. It finally pulled up the file. It's giving me the spinning wheel of death, but at least it's loading the file. We might have music. Maybe. In the meantime, my brain is playing Jeopardy music. Just waiting for it, like do 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 do. But that is not our music. Come on, Google. I seriously do need to just download these files instead of
what was that? I don't know. I impersonate guitars. I do it really badly. That's why I don't have a job doing that. I mean, I have a job. Just I'm not going to quit my day job.
Not going to quit your day job and become a musician and start recording shit with me and Sterling. Oh my goodness. Would this fucking play already? My signal is just not helping. So not helping. It now says 1 bar of 5G. No wonder it's not giving me the computer enough. Here we go!
Reflections. We don't make mistakes. We have happy accidents. Just don't worry about it. Learn how to use what.
That was way better than us.
So much better. That is Rob on guitar, and I believe he recorded the bass for that too, and Sterling on the vocals, and Angel on the drums, and it's fucking beautiful. And on that note, mad love. See y'all tomorrow. Good night.